Okay. And Lynn Deutsch goes first.
First, I want to thank Mr. Ross for all his fine service to Dunwoody, and I hope he's just retiring from council and not from service to our city. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's great to see so many familiar faces and meet some new ones too. I'm Lynn Deutsch. I'm a candidate for Post 5, Dunwoody City Council. I am committed to ensuring that our city is a great place to live, work, play, and retire now and 20 years down the road for people at all ages and in all stages of life. I am running to make sure that Dunwoody remains a city that respects the taxpayer, provides accountability, and preserves our neighborhoods. For the last 15 years, at least, I have worked hard to improve the quality of life for our community. I have been a leader in my community for many years. My desire to lead is driven by my desire to serve the 45,000 plus residents of Dunwoody and not by my ego. I want to serve you by being an outstanding council person. I will serve you well.
Okay, and Kerry Vallette. And Kerry, I owe you an apology. The crier misspoke. We reported in this week's paper that he had not filed his campaign disclosure. It has to do with the spelling of his name. If you go to Vallette on the Georgia Ethics Commission website, it will tell you that he has filed no campaign disclosure. If you go to just Vallette, it will come up. He hadn't raised much money. We hadn't borrowed any money. He's clean. Don't worry about it. No need to apologize.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate that. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Vallette, and I do want to represent you as your city councilman from District 2, Post 5. Before I expand on why I would like for you to vote for me, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Dunwoody Homeowners Association and the Crier newspaper for the sponsorship of this wonderful venue. And most importantly, I want to thank my wife, Jill, of 28 years, and one of my twin daughters is here as well, Sarah, for their support. For without their support and encouragement, I can assure you I wouldn't be here tonight. Thank you, honey. I'm principal at JKS Abbott Group. I have a private healthcare consulting firm focusing in sales and marketing. Jill and I moved here to Dunwoody in 1983. Our first home was over on Summerford Drive. How could I be out of time?
60 seconds.
Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Dick?
I took his time.
No, I...
Oh, you did? You subtracted? Vanna can't subtract. Jerry, Vanna White cannot subtract.
Well, thank you. My professional career spans over 36 years, and no, I didn't start right out of junior high school, I promise you. My entire career has been dedicated to the healthcare industry. I've held executive positions at several large companies, including McKesson, which is a Fortune top 20 company, in which I held a position of Vice President for National Accounts, where I held budgets over $100 million and operating budgets of over $40 million.
I'm sorry, I made the rules.
Okay.
You get a chance to answer why you go along. Did you mention you were president of the Dunwoody Homeowners Association?
I didn't get to that part, Dick, but thanks.
We'll help you.
Or the fact that I was there for 10 years, but that's all right.
Okay, well, I'm going to, again, this is repetitive, but I think it's important. I will ask Kerry, you've drawn the first straw here, which is the density question. Are you satisfied that the city of Dunwoody is doing what it can to address density and multifamily developments, especially in perimeter center?
Well, I think at this point in time, we're fortunate because of the economy that we really aren't being pressed for high density. I think as Terry has pointed out, as Robert has pointed out, we've got the opportunity right now to have our zoning rewritten to manage to that. And that certainly is something that I think we need to make sure that we do right. I'd like to see that we get this done. I'd actually like to see us accelerate the completion of that so the council has time to vet it before we actually be put in a position where we may actually have to enforce some ordinance, only to find out there's an unintended consequences along with it.
All right. Lynn?
As everyone else has said, the economy has been a gift. I've spent, since the city's inception, I have served on the Planning Commission, and we have had no requests for rezonings for additional density. And so that has been a gift. The rewrite of the zoning ordinance, which probably maybe could have started a little sooner, is going to go a long way in helping us control our destiny as it relates to density. We also have a separate issue that, because we focus on density in perimeter center, but we have lots of aging apartment complexes within our borders. And in the past, we have seen with DeKalb County that we would exchange tearing down older complexes for higher density. And we're going to be faced, as the future goes, with those same kind of quandaries. And as a council person, I don't support making an even swap. In other words, we tore down Dunwoody Park. I don't know if y'all remember, but we tore down Dunwoody Park, which was 350 very old units, and we're going to allow somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 and something units. It's where the PVC farm was. And so we have to control our zoning. That's why we became a city, and we have to be very careful. There's actually a 15 acres by perimeter that's getting ready to have a pre-submittal meeting in the next week or two about a mixed-use development. Thank you.
Before I turn it over to Peter, I'd like each of you to address, the city council decided to take 2.5 years to do this rezoning or rewrite of the zoning code. Do you agree with that decision? It would seem to me that if the economy recovers, we'd want to have it in place sooner than that.
Yeah, I know that we had to get our feet on the ground and we had to work on our comprehensive plan, but I would have liked to have seen it done somewhat simultaneously, because the economy doesn't have to get better if land gets cheap enough. There are a lot of developers that are sitting on cash. And like I said, there is a new development group that was supposed to have a pre-submittal meeting tomorrow that I believe they canceled for a mixed-use development near perimeter on 15 acres.
Kerry?
Well, Dick, as I said earlier, I would like to see us accelerate the plan to get it back to us earlier so it could be vetted. I think we need to have probably a good 6 months so council can take it and truly vet it before it actually gets adopted.
Okay. Peter, you're up.
Lynn, if you're elected, what is your top priority when you get in office?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What's your top priority if you're elected?
If I'm elected, my top priority is to make sure that we maintain our fiscal house. We are in uncertain economic times, and we remain in uncertain economic times for the time being, I'm afraid. I don't support things like the $70,000 ice rink. I hate to be Scrooge, but I think we have to be very careful, and I think we have to prioritize. I support zero-based budgeting, where we look at our expenses each year and we decide how we're going to spend money from the bottom up, not the top down. And we have to fix our sidewalks and pave our roads and improve our intersections and do the things that improve sort of day-to-day quality life issues before we spend money on things that sometimes seem frivolous. So those are my priorities. Thank you.
Kerry, same question.
I would say that my priorities are focusing on those things that deliver a quality of life improvement to the citizens of the city each and every day. And what I mean by that are the things why we became a city. We wanted to control and have the ability to control and adequately staff for police and public safety. We want sidewalks and paved roads with appropriate sized bike lanes on our major thoroughfares. Obviously, we want to keep our taxes low, mitigate our debt risk. We're a small city. We're a budget of I think this year will be $22 million. We talked about the updating of the zoning ordinances, which I think is critical. We want to protect the residential integrity of Dunwoody. Last, I think it's important that we keep a balanced working relationship with the PCID, or the Perimeter Center Investment District, obviously our Convention Visitors Bureau, our Chamber of Commerce, along with the DeKalb County School Board and the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners.
All right, thank you. Next question is starting with you, Kerry. Do you support the parks bonds? Why or why not?
Well, that's a loaded question. You know, it's as I walk through Dunwoody, and I've walked a lot of neighborhoods, that is the top of everybody's question to me. Hardly anyone I speak to says they're against parks. What comes up almost every time is the amount of debt involved and the specificity, which I think Terry alluded to, maybe Robert talked a little bit about. And I understand the logic in splitting up the two bonds. But when this came up, I took some time and I met with Bill McCann and also Dan Weber to voice what my concerns were about the presentation that was being done. Specifically, the lack of specificity with regard to what might be built and where it might be built and when it might be built, and then also to make sure that we provided the citizens of Dunwoody with the information with regard to what the cost would be or might be over a period of time and to model it out. Because I believe that if we provide the information to the citizens of Dunwoody and give them all that information, they'll make the right decision that's right for them at that time.
Same question to you, Lynn.
Like everyone in this room that's a citizen of Dunwoody, I just have one vote on this issue. One of my fellow candidates in this race has described this as like this question is walking on dental floss. And like everyone else, when I'm out walking, it is the main thing I hear, or one of the main things I hear. It's good that we get to vote. And unlike the days when we would vote on park referendums in DeKalb County, this time our votes in Dunwoody will matter. We either pass one or both of these, or we don't. If one or the other of the bond passes, I will insist that before any spending occurs, we have a plan that has been shared with the community. The lack of specificity, as Kerry says, and as lots of other candidates are saying, it bothers me. I'm a planner. I won't support the purchase of land without knowing how it's going to be used. I'm not a fan of the city land banking. If both bonds fail, then we can look at current dollars maintaining and enhancing our parks. We also can seek out grants and other resources for eligible facilities. Public-private partnerships are becoming much more common in parks and recreation as land prices drop, and the city should actively seek out opportunities for joint ventures. The other thing is that we can come back next year. We'll have at least 2 voting opportunities in 2012, a primary / T-SPLOS vote in the summer and a general election a year from now. And we can try again. Thank you.
Can everybody hear Lynn, or is it just me? Everybody here? Okay. Yeah, it's just me. I want to follow up with a question that gives me a headache. It absolutely gives me a headache. On this parks bond thing. Suppose we pass one and not the other in either order. Can you figure that out? It's follow-up, so Lynn, you were go for it.
If we pass the improvements bond without the acquisition bond, it's pretty straightforward. We can first of all, we don't have to, if any passes, you don't have to spend all the money. You can spend it as you choose, or as the council chooses, as we choose, and you can spend it over a period of time. You don't have to spend all $33 million ever. But if you pass the improvement one, you can improve the parks we have. You can fix the Chestnut House, you can do stuff at the Nature Center, you can do stuff at Brook Run. If the acquisition bond passes without the improvement bond, it gives me the same headache as you, because I don't know how we'll pay to maintain the land. It will have to come out of operation budgets, because even if it's just empty land, it has to be mowed and secured and de-weeded, you know. So I have the same headache as you.
Kerry?
If I'm understanding you correctly, Dick, if I had to vote for which one would pass?
No, I'm just saying, it's a question that has been the subject of a lot of email today. I just, you know, all right, so part 1 passes, but part 2 doesn't. Part 2 passes, part 1 doesn't. This is a complicated question.
Yeah, it is. Because actually, if the improvement one passes, there's latitude in the language of the improvement bond that does allow the council, if it sees the improvement as actually acquiring that land for park land, it can actually be used to do that. So I think the worst case scenario would be, in my opinion, if only the acquisition, because then we could only purchase land and then we would have to then wait to do any type of development out of the capital surplus. So I guess the choice would be, if I were looking at saying one or two would pass, I would say if the improvement one would pass, that would afford us more latitude to actually deliver something as council. And I think that, you know, as Lynn had said, and I would agree, I think it's up to it would fall upon the council to make the smart decision as to what gets developed and when, if those bonds pass. I would prefer to have specificity going into it, but it's important to have the right people on council to make the decision.
All right, thank you, Kerry. Do you have a burning question, Peter?
No?
Not burning. I'd like to ask each of you, and I forget who gets this, I've lost track of where we are. Who went first last time?
No,
So you don't care, okay? So I'll go to you first, Lynn. I'm trying to watch the clock here. The general subject of impact fees came up with the last group. Where are you on that subject, and do you think they have value to the city? Even though, as most people don't understand, they don't affect the schools at all.
Right. That's too bad, actually.
Yep.
I actually am very familiar with impact fees because when I was in graduate school at Georgia Tech in city planning a long time ago, impact fees were hot and new. And in Georgia, unfortunately, we don't have them for our schools. It would be nice, lots of places do. I am supportive of impact fees. I am. I think that development is impactful, and it helps improve the community in which the development comes into. And so if High Street is going to build 5,000 living units and they contribute impact fees, then we can assure that they have fire protection, which is not a city responsibility, but is something that concerns me about increased density at perimeter, and adequate police protection in parks, and infrastructure improvements. If the density is coming, we have to improve our infrastructure. We can't just which is not what has happened when DeKalb was in charge. We have to improve our roads, and we have to have increased police protection and sanitation services, and so impact fees to me are good for the city, and they don't necessarily have to be set at a level that they're bad for development.
Kerry?
In impact fees, can be a dual-edged sword, because the downside to the impact fee can be to the actual landowner, because oftentimes what happens is when a developer wants to purchase the land and they understand what the cost of the impact fee will be to them, they obviously use that as an opportunity to try to negotiate down the price of the land. On the other side, the flip side is, as taxpayers, impact fees are obviously positive because it offsets the cost that the city would have to use in order to make the improvements for that development.
All right, thank you. Peter?
Will you start with Lynn or Kerry? I forget.
I started with the last
Start with
one.
Kerry
Okay.
now. Yeah.
Kerry, do you think the city is doing enough to support local businesses? And what would you do to improve that relationship?
I think we've gotten off to a great start with, as a city. I think obviously the relationship that we enjoy with the PCID, the fact that we've got an economic director on board says a lot for the city and its dedication to improving relationships and seeking business to move in. You know, the other thing that impacts economic development is really a holistic approach to the city itself, and that involves the schools, streets we talked about, obviously police, a safe place to live, the things that have attracted us to Dunwoody and the reasons we fought to become a city of Dunwoody. So I think the city itself right now, yes, we've done a fairly good job, and I think by having having budgeted for and paying for an economic director is off to a positive start. Can we do more? I think so. Is the time to expand that department right now? I don't think so.
Lynn, same question.
Well, I'm on the Planning Commission, and we spent a lot of time in the last 3 years on the sign ordinance. And while I appreciate the need to make our city look good, It's been a hardship for our businesses, there is no doubt, and it's been a hardship for new businesses. And as Rick Callahan referred to the need for PCID to have an overlay district, to me that would be top priority, because we shouldn't have to have variances for signs that are really acceptable in a commercial area. We now have two standards for signs, just in case people don't realize it. So if you have an existing business, your sign is grandfathered in. If you open a business next door, your sign is not. And that's a hardship, and it may eventually discourage businesses from locating in some of our retail centers. Our economic development person, he's fabulous. We've attracted some really top-notch high-tech companies, and those are the kind of companies we want to attract because we want people to want to live here. We want businesses that can bring residents as well as, you know, just workers to Perimeter Center or to our outlying areas. And moving forward, we have some shopping centers that are not in very good shape, and we need to attract local businesses and encourage them to open in those centers. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for the candidates to ask each other questions. And the way the draw went, Lynn will ask Kerry one question, and he has 90 seconds to respond.
Is that right? I thought Kerry asked me first. It doesn't matter, but...
Well, this mine thing
Okay,
says...
okay, that's fine. I can't remember everything. Kerry, when I was trying to figure out what to ask you, I asked people to figure out, because I like to talk to people. And so, this is my question. For the last 20 years, while I have lived in Dunwoody, I have raised 3 children, 2 of whom are still school-aged, helped my husband with his small business, spent countless hours improving my community by volunteering in both the schools and the community. For the last 3 years, I have served on the Planning Commission, and prior to that, the DHA Board. That is what I have done to prepare myself for today. Can you tell us what you have been doing recently to make Dunwoody a better place to live since we became a city?
Lynn, thanks for the question. It's interesting that you say, what have you done recently? Knowing that I served on the DHA from 1984 to 95 totally discounts the contribution I think I've made to this community. And let me tell you what I did in 1991 when I was president of the Dunwoody Homeowners Association. Back then, Dunwoody was fighting zoning we were fighting developers all throughout the city, the community. I helped the Dunwoody Homeowners Association actually draw the boundary lines of what we consider to be Dunwoody, because we had folks coming from Roswell, from Doraville, asking us for help, asking us for our money, our stockpile of money that we had accumulated to help defend them. So by pulling the Homeowners Association together, we actually defined the boundaries of Dunwoody, which, interestingly enough, are almost exactly what the boundaries are today, with the exception of east. We didn't go quite as far as Peachtree Industrial and Winters Chapel. In 1991, we started the Dunwoody Homeowners Association Parade, which 20 years later still goes on to this day. As a matter of fact, my daughter Sarah was 8 weeks old, along with my twin Catherine, and I got to push them down Mount Vernon behind the Grand Marshal of the parade. In addition to that, in my 10 years, or my last 20 years, after leaving the DHA, I went through Murphy Candler, Morgan Falls with all my 3 kids. As a volunteer coach, thank you.
Okay, Kerry, you get to ask Lynn a question.
Lynn, in response to a candidate questionnaire regarding why you're qualified for the position on council, you stated my diverse leadership roles have allowed me to demonstrate my skills in consensus building, budgeting, and project management. Your bio shows that you served on the Dunwoody Homeowners Association, the City Planning Commission, and the Master Teacher and Academic Coach Implementation Committee. Which of these organizations did you or do you lead? And please cite examples of the largest budget that you developed and had ultimate responsibility for. And if you would share an example of a situation where, on these committees, where you as the leader used your consensus building skills to address an issue.
Well, my bio is a bit modest, And the largest budgets that I have secured was about $4 or $5 million for Chestnut, and then I oversaw when I was on the chair of the Charter Council at that time. I have built consensus on numerous projects, including on the Master Teacher Implementation Committee. I was the only parent representative. I was appointed by Governor Perdue, and quite often I was the voice of reason in the room where you had teachers and administrators about to strangle each other, and I was able to calm the situation. I have led groups as small as 6 people and led a playground build and the effort to get it built with 300 or 400 volunteers. I have sat in meetings where no one at the beginning of the meeting agreed, and by the end we had come to consensus. I have spent years poring over the DeKalb County Schools budget and finding errors and bringing them to the elected officials' attention. I have managed projects large and small, and on the Planning Commission just the other night, we had to reach a consensus on a contentious issue about home businesses, and I was the motion that won. So there you go. Thank you.
Okay, time for closing statements. I got the trains running on time here. Kerry, you're first. 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you taking the time this evening. Vetting out candidates is a critical process, and I commend you for this, because an informed citizen is an armed citizen. As I mentioned in my opening, or tried to mention in my opening, I want to bring a fresh perspective to council. I will apply the same proven analytical and disciplined approach I have used successfully in my business career to the challenges that face the next council. Over the last 35 years, I've demonstrated my leadership skills in both the business and civic world. I've led business units that produce top-line revenues 10 times larger than the city's budget and have had responsibility for operating budgets larger than the city's. I'm not a stranger to an Excel spreadsheet. Compared to many other municipalities, Dunwoody has enjoyed a reasonable, stable economy, and property taxes have been kept low, thanks in large part to the Perimeter Center Investment District, the host tax, and other non-property tax revenues. We all recognize the financial uncertainty our country, state, and regional economies will continue to experience in the foreseeable future. So looking ahead over the next 12 to 24 months, it's imperative that our council keeps an extreme focus on cost and that it takes a conservative approach on capital expenditures. Leadership is more than sitting on a board or committee, it's leading an organization. And I have led business units and have been held accountable for the results. I led the DHA, worked with the DHA for more than a decade to preserve the residential integrity of our community. I'm proud of the lasting accomplishments achieved under my term as president. And while I have other goals I will measure myself against, one of my primary goals as your councilman will be to keep council focused on delivering the services that enhance everyone's quality of life each and every day. And I want to repeat this. I want to keep council focused on delivering services that enhance everyone's quality of life each and every day. Police and public safety, sidewalks and paved roads fitted with the proper bike lanes on major thoroughfares, keeping our taxes low while mitigating debt risk, and updating zoning ordinances, keeping a balanced working relationship. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, both candidates.
No. Dick.
Whoa.
Thank you. Biased a little.
Sorry, Lynn.
Not amused.
I was waiting for a sentence to end, and I got confused. Okay, go ahead, Lynn. Closing statements.
Thanks again for everyone coming out tonight. My master's degree in city planning and leadership roles with a wide variety of organizations included including but not limited to the schools and school system, have given me the skills needed to be a strong council person. I have been active with the city since the beginning when I was appointed by the mayor and John Hennigan to serve on the Planning Commission, where I've had the opportunity to listen to Dunwoody residents and to work towards building consensus. I can address the challenging land use, traffic, economic, and other situations that will arise in our city. My diverse leadership roles have allowed me to demonstrate my skills in consensus building, budgeting, and project management. For Dunwoody to continue to thrive and be a great place to live, we must maintain a small and efficient government that works for the good of our community and operate in a fiscally conservative manner, spending our resources carefully. We also have to protect our neighborhoods. When I am elected to the council, I will be accessible and available. I will listen to my constituents. I will ask the hard questions. I will demand accountability. I will hold regularly scheduled town hall meetings, which no one on council currently does. I will communicate with you often, and I will provide outstanding constituent services. I will be a great council person. Thank you, and I would be honored to serve as your council person.
Thank you very much, Lynn Deutsch and Kerry Vallette. Now